to Leader's Edge,
where
learning is a never-ending
journey, limitless vistas.
Business enterprises around the world are reeling from the negative effects of the lingering pandemic. Strategies should be put in place to allow businesses to recover, hire more people, promote their products and services, with the end in view of growth and sustainability. Today's episode talks about growth and sustainability. My name is Sylvia, and welcome to episode 2, season 9 of the Leader's Edge. Our guest today, Professor Rene T. Domingo.
Thank you, Sylvia. How are you?
I am good. It is so good to see you again after like 30 years.
Oh, that long.
That long. I was working at the Asian Institute of Management so many years ago. And even then, I already knew about you. And you are considered the business guru in AIM. So I'm so glad to be doing this interview with you.
Well, I'm also excited to be part of the show and, working with you again.
Again. It is just a trivia for our viewers. When I was working at the public corporate publications unit of AIM, I used to scan all of the newspapers every day. That's part of my job. And I would clip all of the columns, all the news releases about our professors in AIM. And I always have a column of Professor Domingo, and I would read it before I make a copy and send it to you. So even then, he was a prolific writer. 3 books. He authored 3 books. And maybe at the end of the show, we can talk a little about your books.
Sure.
Okay, so let us talk about our topic today. It's about growth and sustainability. All right, so maybe to just to get the ball rolling, what exactly is the meaning of sustainability? And it's a big word, it's a buzzword, but what is it and what are its objectives?
Well, thank you, Sylvia, for that first question. In fact, it should be the most important question of this session.
Yes.
Basically, to sustain means to survive, to continue. So we're talking about long-term view of business and economy, of life itself. So we're talking about future generations. Okay? We're now living in the present. So when we talk about sustainability, we're talking about protecting the future by what we do in the present. In a way, if you talk about businesses, they're very short to medium term view, and this is making money, okay? Making profit. And the challenge is, how do you take care of your people and your planet at the same time? So the business, the economic activities become sustainable in the future. In other words, do no harm to both planet and people in your pursuit of your financial goals. That's basically what we call triple bottom line. Okay. As compared to a pure financial strategy that just looks at people and planet as a side issue, as an afterthought rather than a before thought. So the other definition of sustainability as we move towards the long-term view, given all these crises we're undergoing, not only COVID, climate change, and all this increase in the price of fossil fuel. This is another view, perhaps a more recent view. It's called F plus ESG, right? So we look at profit, we consider profit goal as financial, and the other, the social and people and planet, is called ESG, consisting of environmental concern, social concern, and governance. Okay? So this is another view of sustainability. How can you do all these four things at the same time, no? In achieving your mission and vision in your organization, whatever it is. So that's basically the meaning of sustainability. And we can go into details on this later on. It's an overall, it's a zoom out view of that word sustainability.
Sustainability.
Okay. So that's quick and simple definition. Okay? Businesses.
So, Professor, do you think there are Philippine companies or organizations who include this definition of profitability in their corporate agenda? Are there companies?
Sure, there are, especially the big ones.
Mhm.
In fact, they might call it CSR, corporate social responsibility. Okay? Some do it because they have to comply with the law, because a lot of our laws, you have to follow this, protecting the environment, especially if you're in mining or manufacturing. Okay? So there are good companies, but still there is room for improvement. We still need to spread this out to all other businesses, not just the big companies, even the small and medium-sized companies.
Okay, so at least it's a good start, and with the new administration coming in, there is so much to look forward to. Let us see.
The government would play a big role. We can talk about this later on.
Yes. All right. So, thank you. I'm glad that you were able to share those graphics with us. So, aside from, we talk about a lot of sectors and industries, and it's in the kind of products and services that they provide and how it impacts the environment. So aside from manufacturing, because that's the most common, and we all know that it has a huge impact on the environment, do you think sustainability can also apply to other sectors like banking or maybe agriculture? What is your experience, Professor?
Well, that's a good question, because normally we associate, for example, the environmental issues with processing, mining, all those people who process, who make things, tangible things, or industry. We call it industry. But let me just share with you a concept called life cycle analysis, which calculates all our impact on the environment, in terms of carbon footprint. So it's not just manufacturing that would have these kinds of impact. So let me just again share a very simple slide that will make this more clear. And for example, if you look at this life cycle analysis, you see that flow of goods. No? This is a manufacturing company, from raw material sourcing to manufacturing to selling, okay, and down to disposal. So every time you have any activity, whether in agriculture or banking, you use energy, okay? And you produce waste. Even banks produce waste, even schools, even hospitals. So if you look at this, every industry would have a responsibility to protect the environment, because we use energy that causes a lot of pollution. We produce waste, solid and liquid waste, and we're responsible for recycling those. Otherwise, it harms the planet if we don't take it back. Okay, we call this the closed loop. So that's one way of looking at sustainability. In fact, agriculture, which we say, it's not in there, but agriculture has a lot of carbon footprint, because you have methane there if you're doing cattle raising. Okay, most of the methane that destroys the atmosphere comes from cattle. When you do agriculture, you have to deforest, okay, and deforestation will cause floods. So even agriculture has a big impact on the environment, negative impact. Banking, BPO, they use energy, they use paper, okay? Even the current Bitcoin blockchain, they use a lot of electric energy to support the blockchain cryptocurrency. And another thing I like to share with you, Sylvia, is this. No? If you take a look at malpractices, that whether the social impact, like labor exploitation, unsafe workplace, overfishing, over anything, over mining. This is not just manufacturing, because you have illegal fishing, illegal logging. Then you have conflict goods, in which you produce precious stones coming from warfare. You have then you have illegal business practices, tax evasion, smuggling. This is part of things we try to avoid if you're a socially responsible company. And this has nothing to do with industry. We can all be guilty of this, okay? And your business won't be sustainable if you practice this just to make money. Okay? So I hope that answers your question. Is it applicable to all industries?
But I'm glad that you shared this slide on business and supply chain malpractices, because this is actually something that people don't want to talk about. Yeah. It is something that somehow doesn't reach the general public, or on very rare occasions, you see it featured in documentaries or maybe a media expose, but somehow it is just an expose. So how can we make it, what is a better term? It is exposed, it is there, we're aware of it, but how can the private sector help the government in making sure that these malpractices are actually addressed, or maybe there are checks and balances in the process so that it does not even reach the end goal? How can businesses look into that chain, their process chain, to make sure that these don't reach the end goal?
Well, the answer to that starts from planning. What is your mission, vision, and strategy? If you start right, then this will be covered. Okay? You are preventing this rather than avoiding. Okay? Because it's part of your plan to have financial goals and ESG, or triple bottom line, not the single bottom line called profit. Okay? So it becomes a more holistic strategy that encompasses financial and non-financial. The problem, if your business is just after sales and profit, you tend to forget the non-financial. You sacrifice the community, the planet, the government by tax evasion, by smuggling, Then you're trying to maximize profit, but you hurt other stakeholders of society. So this is the problem. If you have single goal, you should have triple goals, and these are equally important. Okay? These are equally important, but it's easier said than done, Sylvia. Okay, so
the sad reality.
Something has to give, right?
Yes.
Fortunately, and we don't want that to happen. We call it compromise or trade-off. So what I'd like to discuss, maybe the other question is, how do you avoid this trade-off?
Exactly.
If you're gonna hit 3 goals at the same time.
Exactly.
Okay? And this is the challenge.
How do you make sure that compromises are not made?
Yeah, exactly.
Because in the end, when there's a compromise, then everyone loses.
Exactly.
Everyone loses.
This is not far from spending your personal life. For example, you work hard to make money, you forget about your health and family. You lose both, right?
True.
So we have to have triple bottom line even in our personal life. You earn a living, but you don't have a life. So what kind of living is that? Okay? So it even applies to personal life. Okay? How can you not take care of your health in pursuit of money making? And then you lose your family, you lose your happiness, right? So let's go back again to business. Let's go back to business. Because that's the
Okay. Yeah.
environment. So again, let me just, if you look at this triple bottom line, let's look at this question that you asked about more visual, in a more visual way. For example, you're gonna score yourself 1 to 5. And not 0 to 5, meaning
Okay.
0, that's the worst. Nil, you don't do anything there. And 5, you're excellent, you succeed. Just a very simple scale. And then you score yourself on these 3 indicators.
Alright.
For example, this is a company that would score itself. I hope you can see that. So what kind of company? And this is very common. He's very high on profit, he's making lots of money, but he's sacrificing the planet. Probably polluting, okay? And he's not paying taxes, not paying fair wages, so the people on side, the social sides also sacrifice, okay? This is a typical, many companies are in this track. So they get caught, they get sued, they land in the newspaper, but they're making money, right? They're making money. So their solution is take part of that money and pay all these guys in terms of penalty and legal. It doesn't help the economy. Huh? It becomes a corrective action rather than preventive. Okay, so it hurts the economy. So this is the compromise, and there are ways, as you said, there are good companies, there are best practices that have started to address this so-called trade-off.
Can you share with us what are those best practices that these companies have been using to make to avoid these compromises? And
yes, this is very important because there are principles, okay, and proven principles that would help companies really achieve all these 3. And without sacrificing profit. We're not here to sacrifice profit, because triple bottom line doesn't mean generosity, okay, and charitable work. The business has to be viable. They need profit, return on investment for their stockholders, shareholders, okay? And
Professor, this doesn't it doesn't matter if the companies are big or
no, it doesn't matter.
micro
No, it doesn't
or
matter.
medium-sized. It can be used by everyone. These principles.
Sure. You can be an SME. You will have an impact on. In fact, even small companies can be guilty of this. Why? Because in their pursuit of sales and profit, they don't have enough funds. They will sacrifice. They may sacrifice the planet. Okay. Because they have no time for this. They focus on their product. They forget about the impact of their action on the community, on the planet. So it can happen to very big companies, even those with lots of money, okay, and even to companies with not so much funds, because they tend to prioritize profit rather than the other, non-profit generating activities, quote unquote. Okay?
Can you share like an example of SMEs
SMEs
or maybe startups, because the pandemic has produced a lot of startups.
Okay, let me give you an example. This is very, very timely. And for example, you're an SME, you suffered the COVID, you have a retail store or a restaurant, then you go to e-commerce, online.
Yes.
Okay, now you try to maximize sales through e-commerce. Now the problem is packaging. Now you have to pack all these things before you don't have packaging problem. Now those packages, those plastic will become part of the waste stream. Thanks to COVID, now we have a lot of packages, syringes, plastic because of e-commerce. So this is the challenge for small companies going to e-commerce. How do you now reduce your packaging so you don't add to the garbage, without sacrificing your sales. Okay? And this still has to be addressed. I'm sure you order from online. And
online, yes.
A lot of half of the things that you receive will be packaging, not the content. Okay?
Correct. That's so right.
So it's profit. The package will help you sell as a company. It will increase profit, but it will hurt the planet. It's convenient for the buyer. It protects the, you know. You see, this is the challenge. No? So
Yes.
back to your question. So are there best practices? Is this a chicken and egg in which you have to choose one? Is this a win-lose? Can it be win-win? Okay. Can the planet win and can the business win? So, by the way, in sustainability, Sylvia, this is something we have to correct. We're not sacrificing the present generation for the future, and vice versa. We're not sacrificing the future generation for the present. Okay, both generations are important. Okay? Both generations. Unlike what other people say, oh, let's sacrifice the present for the future. Okay, we will not have a future if there is no present. Okay, so the companies would have to survive in the present economy
right now.
Sure. Okay?
Correct.
This is another challenge. Okay, it's not investing in the future. You forget about the present. No, that is also a compromise. We don't want to protect the planet and people, and then we lose profit. The business starts losing money. They will shut down. And this will cause unemployment. Now we have a social crisis. Okay? So how do you now marry all these three concerns in one strategy? What is that best practice? And this is, I think, the important part of this dialogue. Okay? And I can briefly share with you. For example, let me show you some basic principle of life cycle management, which is 3 R's. Okay? Reduce, reuse, recycle in that sequence. For example, reduce. Very simple. You produce a product that would need less material, require less energy, less utilities, less packaging, and then it becomes win-win. Right? Because if you reduce material, your cost will be lower, you make more money.
Yes.
And it will not produce garbage, then that's win-win. You reduce. Without sacrificing, of course, the quality of your product. The product still saleable after you reduce the package and the energy consumption. Okay? This is what they do with, electric cars, all this, biodegradable, you reduce those things. Okay? The other one is
solar.
Solar. Yeah, you reduce. So solar is good. And then reuse, if you cannot reduce, can you make it reusable? Sylvia, there's now a narrative going on that we will stop sooner or later all the single-use plastic, okay? Because they're reusable, especially those that we use in bottled water. So how do you now design the product so it becomes refillable, reusable? Now this will reduce the impact on the planet because it won't become garbage. It will return to the source, isn't it? In a closed loop. It's like this soft drinks glass bottles that goes back.
Yes. Okay? Yes.
And that's good. It doesn't, and then you save money because you don't have to produce new packaging all the time. Okay?
And I think in many countries overseas, they've already started that using glass bottles for beverages.
Exactly.
I'm just surprised that we're so behind that here in the Philippines. I don't see it.
But again, this will happen if you have triple bottom line goal. So when you design your product, it's not just designed for salability, it's designed for reusability. Okay? You have the end in mind. This must be reusable at the end of life. And then the last one, is recycling. Yeah? If it cannot be reused, can it be recycled? In other words, you melt it again. You like this aluminum soft drink can, okay? That you cannot reuse that. You have to recycle the aluminum. You recover the metal. So that's the third possible. And this all becomes win-win because while reduce is the best one, reuse is also possible. Because recycle will also use energy because you have to remanufacture. But it's better than throwing it into the dump site.
Landfill. Yes.
Because nothing remains in the planet in landfill. So these are the basic best practices. That's win-win. Okay? It's a good investment. It comes from redesigning your product and services so that you minimize the leftover. Nothing is leftover. And you reduce the consumption of, let's say, non-renewable materials. Okay? That becomes expensive, like energy. If you can design something that will require less material, less energy, less packaging, and it is still attractive to consumers, that's the best practice. You're not sacrificing the planet nor your profit. You're still making money, but you're not hurting the planet. And of course, since you're making money, you pay higher wages. Now your people are happier. Okay? You can grow
I think the good thing about the pandemic is that I think people are more conscious about consumer products. I know a lot of people who have gone back to using, for example, let's go grassroots, the bayong. When they go to the public market, they don't they tell their vendors that wag nyo nang i-plastic, don't use plastic, you just dump it into my bayong, my eco bag, and then you come home with less plastic, and the vendors are actually happier because they spend less.
Exactly. Isn't that win-win? The vendor did not prepare any packaging, okay? And the buyer won't be left with so much packaging in their garbage can, because it's really win-win if you think that way. Okay, the reusability of the package.
So what is another best practice, Professor Domingo? So one is the 3 R's. Do you have others that we can share?
Yes. Another important principle is you create a new business model, so you have partners in trying to collect and remanufacture. So the 3 R's would not be enough. You need to reconfigure your network so that there will be people who will collect the leftovers from consumers, for example. And then there is a recycler or manufacturer to send it to, okay, and send it back to the market or to the source. So this is another best practice. So you cannot do this alone. You need the cooperation of distributors, retailers, customers, collectors, recyclers, or a lot of logistics people. So this is a best practice. Okay, and this takes time. It's not about working as one company. When you talk about sustainability, it's a network. You need teamwork.
Okay. I think there is one company, I heard it on the news, who uses plastic and recycles it to make it into construction materials like hollow blocks or building planks to replace wood. But the sad thing is, it is a lone company, just one. And I said, why aren't there any other organizations jumping into this opportunity? Because there's so much material that can be collected and reused, remanufactured.
Yes, exactly. So that is what is needed in this whole, what you call supply chain. We need new partners and new behavior of consumers, because consumers like to throw things to the garbage can. Now this will be collected by somebody. So you need also customers to take part in the sustainability program. And you need to establish new businesses called recyclers, collectors, and manufacturers to close the loop. Okay? Otherwise, if you don't close the loop, it ends up in landfill and it hurts the planet. Okay?
But do we have the technology to remanufacture these products? Or do we need like an external partner who will provide us that technology?
There are technologies, and for a developing country like us, this makes sense, because if you can repair and manufacture old parts, then you don't have to import brand new products all the time. Because when you remanufacture, Sylvia, we call it, we don't recycle, we upcycle. It goes back to the original specs as if it is brand new. Okay?
For example, give me an example, sir. Something, maybe you have a client.
You may not know
it,
but for example, when you take back a car battery, you don't throw car batteries on the street, right? It's you sell it back to the dealer who gives you a brand new one, right? So their job is to recycle that battery until it becomes new again. Okay? So they harvest the parts, okay, and raise it to the level of brand new, and they resell it as brand new battery. And you'll never know it came from old parts because it's as good as new. Okay?
Okay.
Same with aircon and refrigerator companies. They take back the compressor,
So
They
that's the
fix
idea of trade-in.
Yes, the trade-in. It's upcycle. It goes back to the same spec as the original, like compressors of aircon. They can recycle this, repair this, so it goes back to the mainstream of the factory. It acts like a brand new compressor. Okay? Same with some cars. So this is good for the planet, right? You don't have to start from zero all the time when you make a new product. Some of the parts, especially the core parts, can come from recycled parts from old.
So many manufacturing businesses can really do this if they wanted to.
Yes, but it's easier said than done. It should be designed. If the product is not designed for disassembly, it's not designed for like, then you cannot do this at the end of the life. Okay, it becomes what we call a throwaway, like a lot of our cell phones. It's a throwaway.
I was about to ask that. So what happens to those small electronic devices and appliances that
that's the
are
problem.
not
Recyclable.
recyclable?
Well, they become, these are very toxic metals with toxic chemicals. So they end up in landfill and they start polluting. And many of these parts are not designed for disassembly, for harvesting, recyclable parts. And there is no business that is ready to recycle all these harvested parts. So it ends up in landfill. Okay? Same with these dry cell batteries, which are non-recyclable, non-rechargeable. I'm sorry. You know what you do with this dry cell battery? You just throw them out, and nobody really recycles them. And these contain very toxic chemicals when it goes to landfill. So what I'm showing you is a must, right? You need to have this system, this network of businesses to close the loop, to collect what was sold at the end of life, so it goes back to the mainstream. We call this cradle to cradle, no? Source to source. Okay? It's reborn. It becomes reborn. Okay?
So maybe this is an untapped or unmet need that should be open to people who are looking for a business.
Oh yeah, and this is good for it. It will create employment because you need collectors, you need recyclers, you create jobs. Okay? Instead of having more garbage collectors, why don't you have more recyclers? Okay?
And it can be community based.
Exactly, you can use the community, you can use the local government. There are many players. There need not be private sector. Okay, so you can have NGO as part of this scheme. Okay, volunteers, and this will be for the planet, and you're not losing money. Everybody's making money here, right? Okay.
This is actually exciting stuff. If only people would present the possibilities. People are actually looking for businesses to invest in that they feel they can do on a grassroots level. You can start small, but they don't know where to bring their business. So a lot of people would go to online selling because that's easy, that's what they know, that's what they see. If only there were organizations who could share this kind of technology, or maybe the know-how, or bring in the people who can bring in the technology and the know-how, then imagine all of these remanufacturers that are just waiting to be discovered.
Recyclers, manufacturers.
Remanufacturers. On a personal note, I call myself an upcycler. I don't donate a lot of clothes, but I recycle. For example, jeans, I convert it into upholstery material, and I create seat covers and pillow covers. And then my mom would say, "Where did my pants go?" And then I show them, here they are. And then they said, where did you get it? Where did you get the idea? I said, Pinterest.
Yeah.
There's so many ideas, you just need to try.
Yeah. Second-hand goods, waste of factories can be recycled to new
Yes.
products, wasted rubber, textile, you name it, right?
The excesses.
Excesses, you can be creative about it, and it becomes a new business. Okay, so this becomes win-win. You create profits, you create jobs, and you protect the planet. Isn't that a nice way of doing things? Okay? Very sustainable.
Why are not more people doing this? I'm just wondering, because it is a market that's waiting to be served.
Okay, let me just explain to you why. I already shared with you one of the reasons why it's not happening, because it wasn't part of the strategy from day one. The product wasn't designed to be recyclable. So how can you do this at the end of life? So that's one problem. Okay? It starts with designing. And related to that is this. No? It's about innovation. If you don't innovate, you will have a trade-off. You will have compromises. This is a very nice graph from this article, Performance Frontier. And if you look at this, instead of triple bottom line, they're using the ESG plus F, right? So Sylvia, you can see this traditional line going downward. So this is ESG. This is your planet and people. And finance is your profit. Forget about the other line. Just look at this line. See what's going on without innovation. This is compromise. Huh? If you improve profits, your ESG goes down. You sacrifice planet and people. Now, if you improve ESG, what happens to profit? It goes down. So it's a win-lose business model. So this is the reason why it's not happening. They say, oh, why will I do that? I will lose money. So they won't do it. Right? Okay? Yes. I would rather maximize profit, but in so doing, in maximizing profit, then they end up with these malpractices that I showed you. Okay? So now, is there a way out? The way out is innovation. The more you innovate, then there is no compromise. This straight line going up is win-win. As you achieve your financial goal, you also achieve your ESG goal. Okay? With innovation, that's the catch. From minor, mid, so what is innovation? This is basically thinking out of the box. Right? How you design a product that would require less material, that's innovation. Can you replace the material with another material that is more sustainable? How can we produce a more energy efficient product? That's innovation. Okay? How do you produce a packaging that's biodegradable, that or food that doesn't need packaging, things like that. Okay? Or products that can last longer, so you don't throw it away after 6 months. It will last for 3 years rather than 6 months. That's innovation, extending the product life of a phone, of a car, of a battery, right? Instead of being a throwaway after 6 months, that you end up with a lot of this dump site, okay? Because of the short life of products. We have to make products more durable. That's the, Now, the problem is, can you be fashionable and durable at the same time? Because fashion is associated with short life. Right away after a month. So this is not the challenge of businesses. Whether it's cars or cell phone or dress, the shorter the life, the more saleable, the more fashionable. Hurts the planet. Because, you're okay, Sylvia, because you can give your old clothes to somebody. What if it's not? It cannot be used by somebody else. That's the end of the line for that short life product. If somebody can inherit your phone, that's good. Huh? After 6 months, once you change it. What if nobody can use your cell phone after 1 year? It ends up in garbage. Without innovation, this will happen. Right?
Professor Rene, did the pandemic force many companies to innovate? Or did they just or were they still scared to just
yes and no? Yes
move?
And some companies, of course, collapse, no, because of their cash burn. They gave up. They cannot think. They cannot pivot, which is my main strategy. I cannot pivot away from their legacy products, which
What
is
is the definition of pivot, Professor
but
Domingo?
you don't reinvent the wheel. You come up with new products based on your original core competence. Okay, so you're not over diversifying. So, but they cannot think outside their current product. They cannot look at their core competence and come up with new products using the same core competence. That's pivot. Okay, it's a compromise between a clean slate, start from zero, and doing more of the same, which is legacy.
So, for example, if a garments factory was closed down because there was no clothes to sell, but they manufactured, for example, PPEs, is that a
that's
pivot?
pivot. That's pivot.
Ah,
Use the same
okay.
machine, use the same worker skill, but you come up with
Mhm.
a new market and new product. That's pivot.
So that's pivot. All right.
So many companies did that. Those doing plastic plastic toys started making face shields.
Face shields. Ah,
That's
okay.
pivot because
Okay.
you use the same molding machine. Okay.
Mhm.
So, but again, we need to pivot products so they become greener, okay, more environment friendly. That's what's missing. They cannot
Ah,
innovate. They think this product must have a compromise from day one. Okay?
mm,
You want to make it saleable, it must be short life, not durable, okay, so that people will buy again and again. Yeah, this is
yes.
very typical vicious cycle. Yeah, okay. New
Okay.
improve, new fashion. Okay, it's fast fashion, so it hurts the planet. All these materials end up in landfill together with the packaging that contain them. Okay, so this is the final best practice, or maybe the mother of all best practice. We have to
Yes.
innovate to avoid this compromise, and we still become sustainable. We're still making money, as you can see in the graph, but
Mhm.
we're not hurting the planet or exploiting people with child labor, uh, substandard wages, poor working condition. We're not uh, cutting corners. We're not cutting corners, but we are making money. We're hitting our financial goals, like return on investment.
Do you have a specific, can you share a specific case or company who went for this major innovation? It is a gamble, but it paid off in the end. Can
And
you think of like a success story just to motivate our viewers
well,
to,
it's really Sylvia. I don't have to name the company, but
or maybe just describe the
for
service or the
example,
product?
you talk about what happened during COVID. Crisis creates opportunities. Huh? Okay?
Mhm.
Crisis creates innovative ideas. For example,
Mhm.
you're doing alcohol, drink, okay? And nobody goes to restaurants because it's a lockdown. Okay? You have social.
Yes.
So since they're making alcohol, they started to pivot to making rubbing alcohol, disinfectants. Okay, that's a pivot. So for
Ah,
beverage, it becomes disinfectant. But that's innovation. Now you have to tweak your machinery, your people, so
mhm.
that they move towards this new line of personal care instead of beverage.
But you
And
still use the same
technology,
machinery,
yeah,
the
yeah,
same technology.
technology. But
Ah,
thinking out of the box, you can come up with greener products that hurts the planet less. But this requires some
mhm.
imagination. Like if you know your core competence, you think about what else can we do with this, okay? Rather
Mhm.
than selling more of the same, especially if that same product hurts the planet. You end up with just compromising. Okay,
Yes.
you cannot protect the planet because you cannot re-engineer, reimagine your business.
You know, going with that example of alcohol, rubbing alcohol, there was a brand which came out during the pandemic that they were going to provide alcohol refilling stations in a major major drugstore. So they were a pharmaceutical company producing alcohol. it is a branded alcohol, and then they noticed that people threw away the bottles because a lot of them would like to have a pocket-sized alcohol that is easy to dispense, but it's a throwaway packaging. So they said that we're going to provide a refilling station in this drugstore. So you bring your old alcohol containers and you will just pay for the refill. When that came out, it created a lot of buzz, but we didn't find the product. So it was such a big letdown, because that would have been a good innovation for that product, and it would have at least solved the problem of excess plastic created by this company, because they keep producing the small bottles that is handy for the bag.
So let me tell you why that happened, in spite of good intention. Most likely the reason is they forgot about viability of the business. If they're gonna lose money doing this, it becomes charity work, and they cannot sustain charity work. Okay, because you have to scale this business in a big scale nationwide. So somebody forgot about the feasibility of doing this recycling refilling station and make money at the same time. You're not doing this for generosity, as I told you. You're not sacrificing profit and sustainability. So once profit is gone, they're gonna stop the business. No argument, right? No argument.
Okay.
We're not gonna lose money for protecting the planet. No business will do that. Okay. So the idea is innovate. How do you make that refilling station profitable and socially useful? Okay. So
You forgot about the profitability.
You forgot about the profits. That is what I'm telling people. Sustainability is not just about environment. So you have to protect the business. Huh?
Yes.
If the entrepreneurs start losing money, they will forget about this. And that's very logical. Why will I, spend money on there's no return? I'll rather stop the business. Okay? And that's what they do. That's what they do. They won't continue. So you need to innovate the business. By the way, innovation, Sylvia, is not just innovating the product. You innovate the business model.
Business model.
And it's also social engineering, right? You change behavior of people, change behavior of consumers, change behavior of distributors. So they act differently. Okay, that's innovation. So if you just stick to product innovation, it won't work. You have to innovate your supply chain and value chain. It takes that. So it's easier said than done, but it has to be done. Okay.
There are so many players.
Yeah, and that has to be well orchestrated. You cannot just say, well, I'm pro-environment, then it will happen. No, it won't happen. You can do lip service with it. It's going to be lip service. Okay? You cannot execute a strategy that's not well thought out, that it can address all three goals at the same time. Okay? Making customers happy, society happy, planet Earth happy, everybody happy. Right? That's innovation. It's very hard to make everybody happy. Somebody has to lose in the whole scheme of things. And this is the problem. And it becomes a violation, non-compliance. You end up in jail. You end up being penalized. Then it becomes a problem again, right? Yeah?
Yes.
People just pull out of that industry because it's so hard to make money. Okay, because they cannot innovate. They cannot make it planet friendly. So that's what it takes. That's what it takes. Hard work, hard thinking.
And I think it takes a leader with vision and with the hard stuff to push this kind of agenda in order to reinvent the product, to make it
the product and the business.
Yes.
So yeah, you're right. The keyword is leadership, enlightened leadership. Who is an advocate, a believer that it can be done. We can make money without hurting anyone, right? Correct. We can make money without hurting people, without exploiting them, without hurting them. It can be done. Okay, that's leadership. That's enlightened leadership. Okay? Becomes win-win. We have to make this planet Earth survive longer, okay? Because we're consuming at a very fast rate. You know, we're running out of resources, energy, all materials costs have gone up because of scarcity. You know that very well. People
Yes.
have started, countries have started to stop exportation.
Exporting, yes.
So let's pity the importers. They have nothing to run to, right? So this is the problem. Is becoming scarcity is one of the consequence of failure to look at sustainability. Our consumption rate is faster than our renewal rate. And so if you think that way, sustainability really is not for business. It's for the global economy. It's a wider concern than you think. It's not just about some small business or some big, no, it's about society rethinking how we will, live in the next, 100
So
years.
it's so hard to really balance maintaining growth and profitability and sustainability at the same time.
It is hard, but it has to be done. That's why we need to study this, look at best practice. This is not a theoretical thing. Many have succeeded in a small scale. How do we now adopt this in our country, in our industry, so that, we can at least minimize the harm and we can live a little bit longer. Okay.
I'm curious, Professor, as an educator, is this a subject which is being taught in classrooms, in universities?
I teach it in my classes in MBA, in executive program.
Okay.
I always
I sincerely hope that it finds its way in universities, in undergrad studies, even in a maybe in a simpler way in high school, so that we can start them young and we can build more visionaries, more leaders with a better desire not to look at the triple bottom, because
that's good, Sylvia. I think the challenge is, how do you make it happen?
Yes,
that will happen. You said government. Well, the government has a big role to play. So are the industry. So we need an external force to change behavior, the way people think. Okay? Either through legislation. So let me just share with you one slide. No? So that will help us appreciate your concern. We'd like to do this, but how do we change behavior of people? Okay? So these are some of the interventions or policy recommendation. For example, you can do ethical sourcing. You say we cannot buy from you because you're not documented, you're not certified. So this is one way to start the ball rolling. You won't have a business unless you prove to me that your products are planet friendly or your processes. Okay. So instead of just wishing, there is the responsibility of the buyer. The buyer can force the seller to change his ways. As you've heard, the selling will stop if the buying stops. I hope you've heard of that.
Yes.
Mantra, right? So let's start with the buyer. The buyer will not source from unethical sources.
Unethical sources.
That's not a wish list. You want to do business with us? Show me you're ethical. Right? So the next slide will now make this easier to execute. Okay. So if you look at this, and this is already happening in many industries, many product certification. If you're not certified, I'm not gonna buy that, even though your product is cheap. Supplier certification, you can be the lowest bidder, but certified that you are, you're not overfishing, you're not, you're not deforesting. There are many certification on this, no? Okay. You're not wasting energy, you're energy efficient. Okay, so certification is one way, to force behavior of the seller, of the maker. And this will be required by the buyer. The buyer is, as we say, the customer is always right. I need this. Okay, if you don't have this, I won't buy. That's it. Okay, so it will happen. The next will be is to support that documentation, traceability, transparency, disclosure. So this will be the support policy to help change social behavior and the way we conduct economic activities. If you're not documented, it's not traceable, I'm not gonna buy from you. Normally, Sylvia, the reason we buy from somebody is because he has low price.
Yes.
how,
Yes.
how many malpractices that he does. Basta mura, as long as you're cheap, I'm gonna buy from you. Okay, then it becomes a vicious cycle. Those cheap suppliers are usually non-compliant with the things we're talking about. And last is legislation. This is another, where government, enlightened governments can help change social behavior. They can ban the production of this. They can ban the sales of this. They can require that you do this before we give you a business permit. Okay, they will tax you if you don't do this. They'll give you a tax rebate if you do this. So legislation will be a key factor, or government key player, making things more sustainable.
In the Philippines, I think this is already being implemented, these kind of reforms.
We need to do more and faster.
We need to do more.
Yeah, because we're doing corrective. We catch people and penalize them. Okay, I think it has to be more preventive, no? Rather than corrective and punitive. You know, if you punish people for, if you punish people for this, you've already hurt the planet. It doesn't make sense. Yes. Penalizing doesn't prevent harm. Okay? We want to prevent harm to people. No? For example, you're not paying legal wages. You get penalized, but you already hurt employees with your sweatshop, with your unsafe practices. So we don't want that kind of reform. It's after the fact. It must be preventive. Okay, and this is the way to do it.
The reforms. You said that we need more. We need more reforms in order to protect people and the planet. But how can we motivate people, the private sector maybe, to be more involved in ensuring that the reforms are really put in place? Because sometimes there is a tug of war between the government and the other people who have vested interests, and the people who should be part of the equation and should be represented in that conversation. So
that's a good question. In fact, that's a very difficult question for legislators, because again, somebody has to give, right? For example, you have a product, people like it because it's low cost. But if you want to make it planet friendly, the cost will go up. Okay? And nobody wins when the cost goes up. So it's a chicken and egg. So would you tax them? So you have to do some financial reengineering so it becomes viable. That if you invest in greener processes, greener product, it's still affordable. Okay? And still profitable. So this is the challenge. You can legislate it, but if it's not gonna be viable, people will not comply. Now, if you try to jail them for non-compliance, they're gonna shut down the business for legislation that is not implementable. And this happens in many countries. They come up with green legislation that is hard to implement because they've not thought about the viability of the execution.
Okay. Can you give us an example, like for fossil fuel? For
then 4% should come from
renewable
alcohol,
sources.
Renewable sources, X% from sugar, okay. X% from hydro. So
those are the reforms.
Those are the reforms, but it's not enough. We're still so dependent on fossil fuel. Not fast enough. And in other countries, they're gonna ban internal combustion engine (ICE) vehicles. So they're gonna switch to EVs or electric vehicles.
Electric vehicles
in a decade or so. Some states in the United, some countries in Europe. So you're forcing behavior, buying behavior, because they cannot buy this anymore because illegal to sell this. year 2040, 2050. That's one way. If you cannot use persuasion, you have to use legislation. But legislation should be practical. It must be on certain scale so people can adapt, no, slowly and surely, okay, and make it happen. So again, you need to innovate legislation. It cannot just be do this and it should happen, or I'll jail you. You cannot have legislation like that. It won't work. Huh? People will just shut down or stop producing, and you end up with unemployment.
Which is a bigger problem.
It's a bigger problem. You create another problem because you shut down a company that doesn't want to go green. So he ends up with a lot of people that displaced. Okay? Again, it's not triple bottom line. Not triple bottom line. Green legislation cannot be purely green. They must look at the interests of the businesses. So legislation should also be triple bottom line. It's not just protect society and protect them. Then you forgot about the entrepreneurs. Okay?
Yes.
We have entrepreneurs. And they're the decision maker. They can shut down any business anytime. There's no law against that. There's no law against shutting down a business. I think legislators have to really understand this. No? Understand. So it must be innovation, as I told you, must apply to social reform, policy reform, not only product redesign and packaging redesign. No? The business model must be reformed, supply chain must be reformed to hit this triple bottom line.
Professor Domingo, the new government, the new administration, the incoming administration is looking for very bright and competent people to lead their economic, to be part of their economic team. I sincerely hope that they tap you to be part of it so that when they do their agenda, it has the triple bottom line framework as part of it. Because if nobody is going to push for that, everyone will just look at profitability. Never mind people, never mind the planet. And there's so much room for growth. I was in one of our Leaders Edge interviews. I interviewed a lady who is head of a renewables company. She said that the election wasn't over yet, and she said there is so much hope because the new government is supposed to be looking at renewable energy as a real alternative source, and that is their main business. So I said, fingers crossed. Let's really hope that they will push for a greener agenda so that we are not so dependent on fossil fuel that we get from elsewhere.
But Sylvia, the idea of renewable again is good from the planet point of view. But is it viable? A lot of renewable are still expensive. The EV cars are expensive. Solar devices are expensive, right? So hydro are expensive because they cannot put. Wind power, still not really scalable because these are nice initiatives, but it's not scalable. So their prices are very high. Yeah. So you cannot protect the planet if only a few people will do it. It must be massive switch. You cannot have 1% population.
Change the behavior of the
majority
buyer.
should switch to greener solutions. Yes. If it's only one segment like the rich, okay, then wala na. Okay, we need the masses to really change behavior. Okay, or some few industries would do it, others would not. And it won't create a dent. Right? Nothing happens with what we're talking about, so-called sustainability. So that's what it takes. It's hard, easier said than done, but it must be done. Must be done. That's the last thing we have to say about this topic.
So, Professor, it is a daunting task, but it is doable.
Doable. It has been done.
It has been done. And maybe as a way to send our viewers your final thoughts about it. It is doable. It has been done. So what can you share to our followers, our viewers, to encourage them to reinvent, innovate, use the triple bottom line
And the three
framework,
R's. And the three R's.
the 3 Rs? Maybe you can have like a final word for our followers, our viewers.
I think I've said so many ideas, but if there's a final word, not really summarizing this, most of our viewers, social media, and mass media, whatever, are all consumers. We have the power of the buyer. Okay? We can change behavior of the seller, including the government. Okay? The market will decide. If we can educate our people to conserve energy, don't throw garbage, recycle, then they will pressure the sellers to reinvent their products. Otherwise, they won't buy. So it starts with the buyer, which is the population. Okay, not these enterprises. Enterprises will just follow the market. What will the buyers buy? They will produce. If they don't buy, they stop selling or they change their ways. So this is my last word about changing behavior of society, even government. It starts with the population. Okay, let's enlighten the population that if you want your grandchildren, great grandchildren to still have a future, you have to start now, not tomorrow. And the way to do that is you force your sellers, suppliers to go green. Huh? To go green and otherwise, if we are part of the conspiracy, if consumers would not change their ways and we enjoy all these wasteful products that is sold around, then we're not contributing anything. No, we're adding to the problem because we're buying those unsustainable products. So it starts with us, the buyer, the consuming public. Don't you agree, Sylvia? That starts with us, not with government.
100%.
Analyzing all these businesses, they will follow us. Okay?
Yes.
You stop buying this, they stop selling it. Period.
So do something radical.
Yeah.
Change our buying behavior.
Yes, educate the buying public.
Educate the buying public, and the sellers will follow. You try it. I challenge our viewers, try it. You try it in your local supermarket.
Yeah.
You try it in your sari store, in your vendors in the public market. You try to be a little green. You bring your own containers. This is something I normally do. I bring my own container for my eggs. I bring my own tray. And then I ask them to when I buy eggs, I ask them to load it. And then at the end of, when they give me like extra, I return the old cartons to them. And then they ask me, why do you need to return these? I said, well, you need it more than I do. So you don't need to buy extra boxes. And then I also tell them, because it's, instead of bringing it to the scrapyard and have it kiloed, I'd rather give it to you. And then that changes the way they see things. And then they said, salamat, thank you, because that is less operating expense on our part. We don't need to buy all of these boxes, which they get from elsewhere.
Ah.
And then I said, why don't you ask your other buyers to do the same thing?
Yeah.
You tell them, you keep the box I give you, and then I'll give you an extra egg. Motivate them.
That's feasible. In fact,
And that's simple enough.
they save money because they don't have to buy these boxes. the savings is more than the price of the egg that you give.
Yes, and then
But
you
this
don't need to manufacture all of these boxes that just
innovation. That's innovation. You're not reinventing the egg. You're reinventing the transaction. See what I'm saying? You're
and
innovating the
it can
transaction.
be simple.
That's simple.
It can be a simple act, and you can multiply it in other ways with your other vendors
Other
and
products,
other products.
services.
I'm actually looking for a water refilling station that will refill containers of water that are not the big ones. I'm encouraging our water supplier here to put a sign, bring your own bottle, we will refill it. For example, buy one, take one. You bring one bottle and then the next bottle is free.
Yeah,
And
that
then they said, pwede.
yeah, but Sylvia, they have to do some calculation
Viability.
that in so doing,
Yes.
they're not being charitable to you. No? They make money on
Yes.
doing that. So it becomes win-win. You see what I'm saying? Huh?
Yes,
It's not, I'm gonna protect the planet, but you lose money. They won't do it. They won't do it.
yes.
So it has to be calculated that in so doing, they still earn
Earn
some
money.
and money while you save on save on money, and the planet gets less harm, less garbage. That's the way to do social engineering. That it's not changing the bottled water. No? So it has to, the relationship have to be innovated. Okay? The selling transaction. And this is where the buyers, our viewers, can come in, because we vote with our wallets. Okay. Don't care about really who's saying that. Okay, I don't like that, then sorry. Huh? You better stop selling that because I'm not gonna buy it. Okay. What if we add green in our purchasing criteria? Not just price. Okay? Not just quality. Quality, price, and green. You're not, you have quality, you have good price, but you're not green, I'm not gonna buy. Well, that's still in the future, but slowly we should be moving towards that. Huh?
Baby steps.
Baby step, educate the public
Educate the
beyond the
public.
short-term so-called customer satisfaction. The short-term customer satisfaction is really, really dangerous. No? You compromise the future because you're not looking at the present to satisfy the current customers. What about the future customers? They have no planet to survive on by satisfying the customers of today. Our wasteful ways, our wasteful ways of enjoying life. Okay? We're enjoying life in a very wasteful way. Okay, fine. It won't hurt us, but it may hurt future generation. So that's the meaning of sustainability. No? That's why we need to educate first the buying public, okay, so they can influence the supplier, the maker, and influence government. Government that this is the right legislation. It will be acceptable to the public. This is what we do. But you're in education. We're in education. This is our first step. Educate the public with this show. Okay. There's a better way of earning a living, making a living. Okay, without losing your quality of life. Okay, again, quality of life is something they have to maintain while protecting the planet. Okay? And there are initiatives that you protect the planet, you lose your quality of life, then it's not gonna happen. Not gonna happen. Like for example, I will do that, but it's so inconvenient for me. You see what I'm saying? There's a conflict between convenience and going green. A lot of green practices are inconvenient to the buyer because they have to bring their refillables, bring their cup. So how do you now reconcile this? They have to carry a bag every time. Nobody wants to carry a bag. They want the grocery to give them a bag. So this is a behavioral change. Okay? Again, there is a compromise here. It's not easy. Yeah? Because we're so used to convenience.
Yes.
We will not sacrifice that for being planet friendly. That's a challenge for innovators. No? How do you make it planet friendly and still convenient to the buyer? Okay.
That is something that is going to be part of our personal agenda.
Yes.
We cannot say that it's just government's responsibility
buyer.
or the manufacturer's responsibility. It is us, the buyer.
Sustainability is us, right? Not the producer. We always blame the
Yes.
producer, the government. No, no, it's us. We have the power to change things because we are the buyer. All economies are based on what the buyer wants. Then we create the jobs, right?
Mhm.
The business. No buyer, no jobs, no business. Period.
And with that, Professor Rene T. Domingo, we are so happy that you spent this afternoon with us to share your knowledge, your experience about this very important and very relevant topic. I hope that you, our viewers, were able to learn so many new things. And remember, it is not just anyone's responsibility. It is also our responsibility to take the first step. So thank you very much,
Thank you,
Professor
Cecilia.
Domingo. I really hope that we can invite you again next time.
Sure, sure. Looking forward to
And
it. It's fun working with you again.
it's wonderful to see you, and it's like listening to you sitting in one of your classes at AIM. So, did you like today's topic? Please click the like, share, and subscribe button so that we can notify you about our upcoming episodes. So, join us next time as we feature Jan Ace Mendoza. He is a Foreign Service Officer and he is part of an administrative team in the House of Representatives. He will talk about cultural adaptation. As always, learning is a never-ending journey with limitless vistas. Thank you for joining us.